Hello and welcome to another video from the Trent Valley Railway. This video is part of the Building the Trent Valley Railway series, where first of all we've looked at how I planned and prepared for the Trent Valley Railway, and in this video we'll take a look at building baseboards and the framework that I've built for the Trent Valley Railway. I'm putting together this video a little while after I've constructed most of the baseboards and the framework that has put the Trent Valley Railway together so far. But what we'll do here is we'll take a look back at the progress I made over the last year, particularly on building the baseboard frames. So for example, here in front of us, this is the framework that I've put in place for the upper section of the layout. And as you can see below there, you've got the lower baseboards and also the inclines, which will be talked about in future videos. Starting at the very bottom, so basically at the floor, you'll see you've got adjustable legs. So these are actually mainly used for kitchen units, but I've applied them here to basically make sure that the layout is at the right level continuously all the way around the garage, because the garage floor is not flat. It slightly rises towards the back of the garage, just in case obviously you get any need for a run off down towards the garage door. But those adjustable legs, as I've worked my way around the garage, obviously slightly get taller as you go towards the front of the garage, and obviously then they're not as tall right at the back. But these are on each of the four corners of each baseboard section. So I started off at the top right hand corner, which we'll have a look at in a minute from some of the old pictures. Worked my way down the left hand side of the garage towards the garage door. Then once I got to the garage door, I then proceeded across the back of the garage to do the right hand side of the garage and come back down the right hand side of the garage, leaving the garage door section, the removable section, as the last piece of framework to basically put in place. In designing the layout, the next thing up from the ground floor is actually a storage level. So this is where all the garage equipment has now been located. So it's basically underneath that fiddle yard level on the layout. On the opposite side, it's then been very useful to basically store all of the rolling stock, the boxes that go along with the trains, and then you can see on the left there as well, that's just some of the track boxes, so it'll start to store some of the scenery and the equipment that I need to basically build the layout. To make sure that the base for the layout, so that's the fiddle yard level, which is the one sort of towards the top of the picture here, to make sure that is not going to move anywhere, and the weight is distributed correctly, I've then put in a large wooden block, which then takes the load straight down into those adjustable feet down to the ground level, and then as I've worked my way up, you'll basically see here that the next level up then is straight up from there, coming off the fiddle yard level, and then that basically creates the framework then for the next level up. And that basically is pinned off the wall using grippets, which we can have a look at later on in the video. This is the best shot of the framework as it is today, without sort of looking back at some of the old videos and pictures, which we'll do as I talk through this. But what we've got here is effectively then that the framework for the next level up from the baseboards, which are for the fiddle yard. So this framework here then is propped up, as you saw a minute ago, with the wooden posts that sit in the corner of these sections. So effectively each of these is a mini section, and you're looking at one here, and the reason for that is just to basically maintain that the baseboard is at a reasonable size, to make it manoeuvrable when I was building the layout. It also means it can be taken apart section by section if it ever had to, but hopefully it won't. So here we've basically got just a generic cross sections where required. I've put basically 2 beams across the centre. Obviously other layouts you can add more beams across the framework. I've chosen to do 2 because the plywood for the baseboard that I've chosen is quite thick. It's not really going to be flexible in any way to basically go down in between the gaps that you see there. So as long as it is screwed in at the various points along the outer of the frame and also across the beams or the joists across the middle, then there should be no problems with the baseboard sort of sagging or basically not being flush against the framework. What you'll also see in this shot is if you look closely towards the very back wall, you'll see 2 red sort of circles, which are actually the grippets, and those grippets are basically plasterboard fixings, and that is what I've used to fix the upper level of the baseboard framework into the plasterboard walls at the very back. So across this section here I've screwed it into 4 locations, and then at the very front it's basically screwed in to those timber posts which come up at the very front of the layout. For building the actual frameworks for the baseboards, simply use some wood screws of the varying lengths dependent upon obviously how far you need to screw it into the wood and the wood piece behind. Added in wood glue in the joins to make sure again that the joins stay put and maintain that levelness across the joists and also the outer framework for the baseboard to sit on. And then for the lower sections where the 2 baseboards join together, I got some coach bolts and some wing nuts, as well as a washer in between, to basically tighten up those sections of the framework together and effectively make sure that the baseboard at the lower level is flush up against the next baseboard that adjoins it. This is looking at the opposite side of the garage to earlier, and it just again points out the way that I've constructed this all the way around the garage is in the same sort of modular form, with the adjustable legs at the bottom, a board that then stretches across each section, which creates a storage in the garage, the 75 by 75 post up to then the lower level of the layout with the framework and the baseboard on top. The baseboard I've used around the layout is plywood, and this is around about 9mm thick, which you can get from your local timber merchants. So my top tip here for building the framework and the baseboards for the layout is, particularly later on in the build when you come to laying the track, try and get the baseboards as flush as possible. Firstly, it gives a really nice finish, even if you don't put, for example, cork on top of those areas, but it will help you no end later on in the process to make sure that the track where the baseboard joins are is not basically deviating over a bump, or will then cause derailments in the future as you run your rolling stock around your layout.